Hello, welcome to our show Education Hour. Well, it should be welcome back because for our last 15 minutes, as usual, we have brought on an educator and we're going to ask Mr. Luke Deming, a teacher, or you could say instructor at Shishing University, a private university located in Taipei. The funny thing about this story is that Luke was actually once a student at Shishing. In fact, 11 years ago, almost 12 now, when he was 21, he first went to Shishing as an exchange student. And then he was there for a year, played basketball, was in the English department, went back, got his bachelor's, went to NTNU Shida for their translation and interpretation master's program. And then he made his way back into education, joining Shishing 2 years ago. And then last year he became a full-time instructor at the university. So let's welcome Luke to our show. Mr. Deming is in front of me. Yeah, it's good to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Kerr. Just call me Brock. It's okay. Well, it's a pleasure. I've seen your show. I'm a big fan, and I just want to say I love what you're doing, and I've learned a lot by seeing what different educators say in terms of their theories and their experiences. So thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay, so well, Mr. Deming, let's we have a surprise little video for you, and we'll show it to you right now. So, could you tell us what you think when you saw this video? Well, to be honest, when I first saw myself, I didn't realize I was that skinny, and I've gotten older, and but also I had no idea that my voice was so high. And then when I see this picture, I think I realized why I didn't have a girlfriend until at least into my early 20s, and because when you have that kind of curly hair, things don't go very well for you. But I have that shirt still. I've trimmed down a little bit, and I've improved with my fashion and my haircuts. But some things stick with you even into your 30s. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Luke. Okay, let's take a look at some of our questions. Okay. Now, our first question is basically, how are you? You know, how's life been treating you? Especially during this pandemic. Right now, you're teaching from home, correct? Yes, all our classes are online now, and there's two different ways you can do it. The one is Tongbu, which you just do live classes, and then Fei Tongbu, which is you try to do videos beforehand. And then I've actually ended up doing videos after because it's a lot of work to make the videos themselves. But I don't like it. I like being in class, being able to see the students and things like that. But we're trying to keep the numbers low here in Taiwan, so you do what you got to do. Okay, thank you so much. Well, the first question is a natural one, and we're just curious about how did you get into education? Well, you know, I actually never really wanted to be an educator once I decided that I wanted to learn Chinese. So originally, I was in high school. I didn't know really what I wanted with my life, and I think back then, which is the same problem that people have nowadays, is we get majors because there's a job that I can do with that major. So you're going to become a nurse, you're going to become an engineer, or you know, for me, I was in the education department, and so naturally you go, I get a degree in education and I have a teacher's license, I'm going to be fine. And I wasn't the kind of person that said, I'm going to go do something in psychology or philosophy. I didn't believe that I could find a job with the non-traditional major like that. But then you ended up actually leaving the education program at SVSU, your alma mater, and then you ended up studying Chinese, but then you finished with an English literature degree before you actually came to Taiwan. That's correct? Well, it's a little bit complicated. I came to Shishing. I was an education department student at my alma mater at Saginaw Valley State University. But Saginaw Valley State University, SVSU, and Shishing are sister schools. And I came here for a semester, loved it so much, ended up staying for a year and a half, so I added on 1 year to that. And then eventually I realized, I don't want to be a teacher because I enjoy the learning thing a lot more. I enjoy the process of learning. And I thought I wouldn't be a good teacher because I like learning, but I don't know if I like teaching as much as I enjoy just learning myself. But I eventually changed. I realized that being a translator didn't feel as important. I feel much more helpful to society. Like I contribute a lot more as an instructor, and so I don't regret making the switch back to education. It'd have been nice to maybe get an education degree, but I think that I've had so much experience teaching students one-on-one and being a translator. I have all these different skills that work together. I think it's made me a pretty good educator in the end. So I don't regret it. But it's funny, I was in the education department, decided I was never going to go into teaching. When I was growing up, I think I maybe wanted to be a teacher in high school, but I wasn't too sure. But I think now I'm pretty sure if things work out, I could keep on doing this for a long time. Okay, thank you so much. Well, that kind of naturally leads us into our next question is, what inspired you to become a teacher? Was there anybody special that really made you think that, this is something I could do as a profession? Well, it's funny, people always take this question as a positive, and I guess I'll start with the negative side. Of course, I've had bad teachers, lazy teachers, and I'm not going to say their names. I had one teacher in high school that he just never taught anything. He didn't even open up the book, and we're just watching TV. And that to me made me realize that that's the kind of teacher I never want to become. So always work harder than that. So if I ever feel lazy, I think about the lazy teachers, and that inspires me to say, don't become like that kind of teacher. If you can be lazy, don't choose to be lazy. Always push yourself for you, and especially for your students. And then I also had a really bad teacher that purposely gave me a low grade when I was in my master's program, and I felt maybe some issues with racism and things like that, and I think that made me realize that I need to care more about my students, and I need to take my own biases. If I don't like certain groups of people, I can't treat students differently. If I don't like students from a particular country, I can't give them lower grades just because I have my own biases. And so, in terms of the negative memories, those have definitely inspired me to. I have that limit of don't become like that. Don't make those mistakes. Don't be that lazy. And that was good. But also, in terms of a teacher that really inspired me, I would have to go back to Mr. Shepard. He was my band teacher from 6th grade, because where I was at, basically it was a smaller town, and so he taught everything from elementary to high school. So he was my teacher for, I think, for 7 straight years, which is pretty amazing because you really grow a lot in 7 years, especially when you're 18. So it's pretty much 11 to 18. It's like Harry Potter. But yeah, that was he was very, very important to me because I think growing up, he wanted to be cool, and I wasn't serious about it, and he was very serious about his job and making the community band top notch. He wanted people to know, oh, Freeland, they have the band, and he did that for 30-something years. And I don't think he was ever bad to me, but he always was very strict in the way of he had an expectation and I wasn't reaching it. And what I decided I was going to have an attitude change, and what really meant a lot to me was he picked up on that. He realized that I had changed, that I had went from wanting to be cool to someone who wanted to be a leader, didn't want to make mistakes. And even when I made mistakes, in drill, or I made the wrong move, made the wrong step in marching band, I think he realized that my heart was in the right place, and he invited me to go with the band to a special college thing, and that meant a lot, because I think that he saw, hey, I'm taking this seriously. And if I was working hard for 2-3 months and he didn't recognize that, I think that maybe I would have went back into my old ways. But to have someone recognize you when you've improved, I think that means a lot. And so that's something I've always tried to do, is always aim to be top notch, work hard, give yourself a reputation, a good way of being a good teacher. But the biggest thing is to care about students who are not the best students, but also if a student goes from bad to good in terms of their performance and their attitude, you need to recognize that and reward that. Okay, well, thank you so much. That was quite the story. Yes, I think we've all had some amazing teachers, and I remember, we were talking a little bit before, and you've had different coaches, and fortunately we only have so much time on this program, but it was quite inspiring, and I think that they would love to hear the great messages and great compliments that you just gave them when we were talking before the show. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to ask about the teaching profession specifically, getting in the classroom is, what do you like most about teaching? Well, for me, it's always amazing when a student teaches you something, and because I think that it shows, it's a little bit humbling, but it also shows if a student is teaching you something, it's because they're working hard and they're doing something extra. And I had a student recently tell me, about how if we waste our money, in college, if our parents are paying for us in college, it's kind of stupid, because in our will someday we're going to get money from our parents, right? So why waste these 4 years? You're making an investment in yourself now, and that was kind of morbid, but that was very funny. And then a student also checked up something about the Netherlands that I didn't know, and that's all really, really important. But also, I think just seeing growth and seeing improvement, and that's always amazing to know that you maybe had a positive contribution. I had one student who didn't get into Microsoft at first. I said, hey, be calm. They might message you because someone leaves. And then she ended up getting messaged, and she got the internship. And so little things like that really mean the world to me, because you want your students to be smarter than you. You want your students to be better than you, and to know that your students are growing. That's always a positive thing. You're not a parent, but in some ways you kind of root for them. Okay, well, perfect. And that is the next thing, because you're mentioning about students. And so we were curious about, what do you wish students knew about the teaching profession? Students probably have an idea of what teachers do, but could you share a little bit of the mind of a teacher, and especially how students often don't know what's going on in that brain of yours? Yeah. Well, the first thing I think that people need to realize about teachers is, if I have 14 hours of class, I'm actually supposed to prepare 2 hours on top of that. So really a 2-hour class is a 4-hour class for me. And that's the very minimum, is 1 hour in the classroom, 1 hour out. I would say I'm up at least at 4 hours per class. And then there's things on the outside. So if I have 14 hours, I'm definitely working a 40-hour job already. And then this last weekend, I was working on a paper, an academic paper. So I actually had to do a research paper, and it was 20-something pages long. And so I'm almost like a student, and there's things on the outside that they don't always know. I had to go to a couple of different schools on the weekend this semester. One was on a Monday, so I'm actually like going to high schools some, and then of course I play soccer, and that takes time. But in terms of my job, there's things I have to do, like I have to evaluate myself as a teacher, and this all takes hours. And sometimes I'm not able to put as much time into the education aspect as I want to, and that can be always very frustrating. But I kind of wish that students would understand that there's a lot of little things that they don't understand what's going on, that we have to meet with students outside of class, that we have these different meetings, and it's not just show up and talk for 2 hours and then go home. And then there's also some things that can be really frustrating. Like I had a student that I co-cowed, and then they ended up coming back, and I actually had to go and do some paperwork, and it was a complicated process for someone who didn't follow the rules, and it all takes my time, and it's frustrating.